My name is Richard Scholar. I teach French at Durham University. I'm a writer and translator, and I'm the author of a new book called Émigrés, French Words That Turned English. I've long been struck and fascinated by how much and how deeply English borrows from French. What do these borrowings say about the development of English over the centuries and about the way the language is spoken in all parts of the world today? That was the question I explored in Émigrés, and I'd like to share with you some of the findings of the book. What I'd also like to share with you a bit later on is a new idea of the new normal that the work suggests. Many borrowings from French into English have been so seamlessly absorbed into the language they've become part of the fixtures and fittings. George W. Bush is reported to have claimed that the problem with the French is that they don't have a word for entrepreneur. Whether the anecdote is true or not, it illustrates a deeper truth, which is that English speakers turn to French much more than they like to think they do. Some borrowings from French leave no room for confusion. They assert their identity as migrant French words, as émigrés. Think of phrases like double entendre and je ne sais quoi. These phrases and words like naïveté, ennui and caprice have been widely available in English since the late 17th century. They've seemed to users of English to be uniquely expressive, to be, as the French would say, the mot juste. Remember Miss Jean Brodie in the novel by Muriel Spark, explaining her approach to teaching Edinburgh schoolgirls. I am in the business of putting old heads on young shoulders, and all my pupils are la crème de la crème. Without such borrowed treasures, we might conclude, English would lose its mot juste. And also its mange-tout, as Del Boy in the famous BBC comedy Only Fools and Horses would doubtless say, mange-tout being one of the many Gallicisms that Del Boy enthusiastically trots out in order to show that he is a man truly à la mode. What then do the many untranslated French words and phrases that we so often use in English reveal of the language? They suggest an alternative history of English, and it's that history that I explore in Émigrés. These French words and phrases matter because they complete English as a language by reminding us of its fundamental incompleteness. They show its relation to the languages and cultures that surround it. They mark out things that it can't immediately express, while also creating for it new possibilities of expression. Working for the book on particular words and phrases put me in the way of some discoveries. I wasn't aware until I started excavating the history of one of Del Boy's favourite French phrases, à la mode, that in 17th century Britain, an à la mode was a black silky fabric, whereas in North America to this day the phrase means served with ice cream. Perhaps no phrase captures more succinctly than à la mode the fascination in the English-speaking world with all things French. But the phrase also betrays some of the fear felt towards the influence of French culture and society. Many view France as actually or potentially hostile in intent, even as they admire its culture and language. And the result of that is a profound ambivalence, at least in English culture, towards the migrant French words that have travelled into the language. Another of my words, naïveté, illustrates that ambivalence in action. A naïf in English means, among other things, a rough diamond. And it takes sophistication to appreciate a diamond in the rough. A sophistication that users of English can lay claim to by using the French word to put themselves, if you like, at an elegant remove from the native simplicity of which the word naïf also speaks. Naivety in this way highlights English ways of saying and being as entangled with the French culture viewed as superior. The word ennui reflects, I think, that same entanglement. It adds so much to the standard English word, boredom, that it's frequently paired with. Ennui enables English writers and speakers to illustrate the sad fact that on every level of their existence, the wine is elsewhere, and the beer glass of cold water they've been left with instead is half empty. It was the London Impressionist painter Walter Sickert who invented that very visual image of Ornui in his 1914 painting of that name. What you're now seeing is a brilliant translation of that idea into a visual emblem by John Barnett of the Princeton University Press design team, who created for each of the migrant words I explore in Émigrés its visual emblem. The last of those words is caprice. Caprice has thrived in the contact zone between languages, bearing witness to the struggles in that contact zone between control and resistance, and encapsulating the deviant creativity of those who inhabit the contact zone between languages and who constantly elude binary oppositions. Perhaps the most surprising discovery of Émigrés, at least to me, was of the colonial histories lurking in the French words that have turned English. These histories may be traced right back to the Norman conquest of England, to 1066 and all of that. They have profound implications for the questions that we need to ask about our language. This is because they show English being made by mixing with foreign words in a creolizing process connected to the long history of colonialism at home and abroad. Creolization is a process that we can't understand without the help of Caribbean intellectuals like Edouard Glissant and Stuart Hall, who have defined it as a mixing of languages and cultures that takes place amidst highly unequal relations of power, primarily those that existed between African slaves and their European owners on plantations in the Caribbean at a time when black lives did not matter as they should. In Émigrés, I explore creolization for what it reveals of émigré words, their histories, and their place in modern global English. This exploration caused me to bring the notion of creolization into dialogue with the study of keywords as pioneered by Raymond Williams. Williams explored English words complex in meaning that related to what he called the central processes of our common life. Williams thinks deeply about language in history and about language as history. I drew inspiration from that. But I also came to feel that his vocabulary of culture and society lacked an entire category of keywords, that is, keywords of conspicuously foreign derivation. These are the creolizing keywords of modern global English. No vocabulary of English would be complete without them. They include, of course, the many migrant French words that we use so often as we talk about the central processes of our common life in English, and in the search for completeness of self-expression as we reach not just for the mange-tout, but also for the mot juste. Whether it's the mot juste or the mange-tout, the words that we borrow from French play a vital role in the language and culture of the English-speaking world. And it's that story that I tell in Émigrés. That story suggests, I think, a new idea for the new normal. There's so much ambivalence in the English-speaking world towards foreign languages and their cultures. Let's suspend that ambivalence for a moment and celebrate instead the pleasures of language. English offers us so many of these, thanks to the influences from many sources that have gone into its creative mix. Let's use these pleasures as a vantage point from which to reassess our attitude towards the languages and cultures that surround us. COVID-19, which knows no borders, reminds us that the relations between us stop nowhere. In the COVID-shaped, post-Brexit new normal, we in the Britain, the politicians are calling global, would do well to think about our place in an interrelated world. If we're to repair damaged relations and to nurture new ones, we'll need to speak to other peoples in their languages and to listen to what they have to say to us in their own words. I recognise that learning languages can seem a daunting task, but we in the English-speaking world are already more multilingual than we know. While we may not realise it, for example, every day of our lives we're switching in and out of French.